The levels mightn't be the best, and the gaps between the items, well, they don't really stand to reason unless you knew just what difficulties I had to make this particular recording. However, I do hope you like it.
Why you driving me crazy? We going the same way, you know we're playing the same game. We're chasing the same dream, you know that we love the same kids. Wondering lately. Oh, I know the show began some time ago, you know. Wondering lately. And with many trying times between the ebb and flow. Up each other's walls. Wondering lately. And the number one might not to be there if you fall. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wondering lately. I'm wondering lately. Why you driving me crazy? We're going the same way. You know we're playing the same game. We're chasing the same dream. You know that we love the same game. Rivers, devotion. Why you drive me crazy?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this beautiful sunny, well, where I live actually, sunny Friday morning. Good morning, Rod. Good morning, Christina. Good morning, Dion. Glad to have you all on board joining me in the chat this morning. It's been quite a week, very interesting. I've been playing around with Marvelous Designer, and I thought I'd share some of the findings with you that I've found out. Really, it's I've had Marvelous Designer for several years, but only up until version 6, I believe. So I've downloaded version 8, the trial version, which I believe is currently on sale for another few days. Maybe the sale is already over. I don't quite remember, but I'm not sure if I'm going to buy it or not. While I have it, I thought I'll do a Marvelous Designer / DAZ Studio related thing, and that is what I've come up with. Can the audio be heard? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can actually hear me. So what we're going to do this morning is create some party balloons, and they were inspired. Here's the thumbnail that you've seen. This was inspired by a birthday present that I've given Julia. Thank you for asking, Christina. Julia is fine. She's got another dental appointment today, though, so she's going to have to leave us at 12. But I'm hoping we're going to be done by that time already. So it's nothing serious. She's just, it's just age, really. So we all get older, aren't we? So it's one of those things. So I've given Julia a couple of balloons, and actually I do have a picture of them here. Do I? Oh, there we go. Yes, those were the balloons, and I bought them at the supermarket where I have a part-time job, and they are ginormous. They are literally like 3 feet tall, and they look great in the supermarket because they had really tall ceilings there. But as soon as I brought them home in our one-bedroom apartment here, it's they do look rather large. But inspired by that, I thought, hey, this is really easy to do with Marvelous Designer. So I thought. $50 a month, Rod. That would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be very cool. Oh, sorry. Yes, 50. Hey, there we go. The number 50. I didn't get the thing. That's one of those things. Very cool. My brain is going off on one. Yes, $50 a month, or it's proprietary license you can buy as well for several $100s. I'm sticking with version 6 for now. 6.5 has a bug, so I'm going to stick with 6. And anyway, this is what we can do with it. And what's nice about Marvelous Design is that you can just create these shapes here and then have them stitched together. I'll show you how that works, and then we can bring them into DAZ Studio and texture them. And once, that's just basically just a simple material that we're going to put on them here, which is like a metal material here. And this has got a different type of texture, but the principle is the same. This is how this is made, and it's good for pillows, good for bedding, and of course good for clothing. But it's one of those things. When I bought it, I'm not really into making clothing from a point of view of putting patterns together, because I just don't know how it works. But my mom is, and she's been making clothes ever since I've known her, really, making tops and all that. And this is her latest creation. She sent me that this morning. So if you're watching, hello, Mom. She's in Germany, and I believe she's out walking now, so she won't be able to join us for the live chat, but she promised to watch the video later. So this is Sven, and Sven is a little crocheted piece of gadgetry that she's found in a pound shop, and she's made that recently, and it was very difficult, she said. But anyway, so she likes making these things. And when I showed her Marvelous Designer a couple of years ago when she was here to visit me, she knew how to use patterns, like clothing patterns, and I knew how to use the program. So together we came up with a few funky, interesting designs there. So very interesting stuff. That's not that, but the balloons is what we're going to make today. Let's get started with Marvelous Designer. This is how it looks. This is what it looks like. It's a little bit daunting when you see it for the first time. You can import avatars. This is a 3D window here, and this is a 2D window. 3D window will show you what your design looks like. and the 2D window is how you're going to stitch the patterns together. So something really simple, we're just going to go ahead and create a rectangular or like a square type thing that we just draw out with this little shape here. Size is kind of, depends on how big you want this to be. Marvelous Designer goes and thinks about this for a second, and this pattern is now represented on the left hand side as well. So the left hand side you can spin around and look at it from all sides. So the side that has the normals on them, this side, is a little bit lighter than the other side. This is the side that doesn't have the normals, that's normals facing away. And yeah, that's just one pattern here, one piece of clothing right now, or one cloth pattern really. So if I'm happy with this, then I can go ahead and copy this, and then symmetry paste it in. So on a square, it doesn't really matter that much, but mirror paste will take care of making sure this is exactly the same piece, just mirrored. And now we have two of them, one either side. And the magic really with Marvelous Designer comes into place when I now go ahead and turn this piece around, move that back slightly, and just line that up with the other piece in my 3D viewport here. So that is now, it's not precise. I mean, it doesn't have to be. There's always a bit of leniency that you can employ there. So those are just two planes really at the moment. They have several divisions. We don't quite see them at the moment, but under the hood, Marvelous Designer does work with a lot of subdivisions in these things. So they don't just have four vertices on either side. They have more geometry built in. So now the super exciting thing is that you can stitch these things together, and that's really, really cool. So with this little tool here, and I'll show you this about 3 times, so don't worry if you don't get it at first. That's so you can click this this little needle icon here, pick a starting point, like maybe this starting point here, and then go, I want to sew from here to there to there to there. That's my first kind of sewing line. And now I want to go ahead and stitch that together with the thing going from here to there, to there, to there, to there. Oops. Right, there we go. Boom. And if you've done it correctly, then in the 3D views, you see that these are kind of, threads holding this thing together. And I always thought that was a very exciting concept. And you can now employ the simulation engine to it, and that'll just basically pull these two things together. And then if you had an object like an avatar in between, then these things would kind of be what's the word? It's like one of those vacuum foil packages. It kind of sucks themselves around the avatar, and that then creates the object of clothing. And on export, you can create a proper 3D object with it. And so that's how clothing manufacturers usually work, and you can then define several ways of saying, I want this cloth to be closer to the avatar, further away, I want this to feel like silk, I want this to behave like jeans material, or like heavy carpet material, and so forth. And in the latest version, they've introduced things like sculpting as well, because many designers were using this Marvelous Designer as a starting point, and then bringing the OBJ into something like ZBrush, and then that's where the real work kind of happened. So I believe, yeah, I know what you mean, Christina. It is extremely it's extremely expensive. The good thing is, if you're only using it casually, and if you have an older version of Marvelous Designer, then it's actually fine to stick with that and not always upgrade to the latest version. So that kind of works, because the basic concepts have been in Marvelous Designer for a while, and over time they've added things like being able to make buttons, and now there's the sculpting ability, and now you can make zippers with it and all that. So it gets better, but only marginally so, I find. So it's if you have the cash, great, but I personally don't. So let me show you what we can do to turn this thing into a pillow. Right now, when we start the simulation, that's this button up here, or you can also press the space bar to do the same thing, then it'll do this. So it kind of goes together, but of course it sinks to the ground, and it just goes plump, and that's not really what we want. So yeah, that's not much of a pillow, is it? So in order to bring that back, I believe there's under 3D garment we can reset the 3D arrangement, and that'll bring this back to its original position. So what I've found to make these types of balloons, there's two things that we need to do. First of all, we need to switch off the gravity. So that makes the cloth not fall to the floor. And of course, with real clothing, that's really what we want. Gravity is a cool concept because we're going to go and investigate that in dForce. When we bring this into DAZ Studio, we're going to have a look at the gravity setting in dForce. And turn that upside down to make that balloon float up. So we're going to play with gravity here. Very exciting. Marvelous Designer thinks about gravity in its scene tab here. Under scene, I believe under 3D simulation property, that's where it is. And you can see that here under gravity. I believe, can you do that? Yeah, there we go. That gravity is minus 9800, and that's such a weird value because they said, well, this is Earth gravity, isn't it? Minus, I forgot the unit now, but that's some kind of 9.8 whatever kilokelvin per, I don't know, square centimeter. I mean, if you know it, please let me know. It's but I remember 9.8 from school, and that had to do something with Earth gravity, and anything higher than that is more gravity, and everything lower than that is no gravity. So if we set this to 0, then our clothing will not will not fall to the floor anymore. So that's good to know. And the other thing that we need to do, so if I start the simulation now, it'll just hang in place, but it still doesn't look much like a balloon. So it doesn't fall to the ground anymore. That's nice, but it also doesn't quite inflate the way I wanted it to. So in order to do that, we need to add a bit of pressure to our garment. And pressure is more or less a force that Marvelous Designer applies to the item to our clothing pattern that moves outwards, so in the direction of the normals. So pressure is something that builds up internally. If we have a closed shape like that, then it will indeed inflate like that, like that's going to be nice. But we need to apply that to every part of the cloth. And in our case, we have two patterns, this one and that one. So we have to go to the first pattern and add the pressure there. And I believe pressure is somewhere over here. There we go. That's it. Pressure. Can you see that right here? Pressure. Oh, my face is over that. That's not good, is it? Let's go and maybe that. That's not good. My face shouldn't be there. Let me just take my face away. Sorry, I'm just going to disappear for 1 second. There we go, and show you where that pressure thing is. So that's where the my face is back. My goodness, there, face is gone again. There. So the pressure is here. That's a little slider down here. I could just move that and bring myself back. Then there we go. Hey, I'm back. I'm back. There we go. So pressure. If we put that to something like 5. Just as an arbitrary value, and once we've done that, the thing will probably fly away because we haven't applied it to the other pattern yet. So let's go and select that other pattern. Oh, I'm gone again. Bring myself back. There we go. Let's select that other pattern and put that pressure back up to 5 here as well. Whoops. 5. Whoa! What's happening there? Let me just quickly switch that off and reset the 3D garment, and let's just find it. Where is it? It's gone now. Oh, there it is. My God, what's happened there? You can tell I'm not a Marvelous Designer expert. I don't know what happened here. This is now completely upside down. I'm sure there's a keyboard shortcut in which we can just zoom in on this item. Well, luckily we don't need that view for much longer. We're just going to go ahead and press that simulation thing, and now we can see that this behaves more like a pillow. Well, where's it gone now? Ah, man, that's just the nature of live shows, isn't it? When things go wrong and you don't know how to bring that back. I'm sure somewhere under view we can bring this back. I'm just going to trust that it's there, and I'm going to go ahead and export this. Well, actually, I'm going to switch off the simulation first and head over to File, Export, OBJ. And once I'm done with that, I've made a folder on my desktop here called Balloons. I'm going to call that one Square Balloon. And that's just a regular OBJ file. Right now, we don't have anything in regards to textures that we're going to export. It even gives me the DAZ Studio export option, which is 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Single object, weld, and thin. That's all good. Marvelous Designer can export texture, so you can put a texture in here, scale that up properly, and it will UV map the object that comes out. So we'll go ahead and make another one in a moment. Just wanted to show you this is the principle. If we go ahead into DAZ Studio and bring that puppy in now, we should see, we can have a look at how this thing looks. So go ahead and head over to File, Import. Under my balloons folder, I've got the square balloon that I've just saved out. And with that, I can go ahead and use the DAZ Studio import options. And there it is, my pillow. And this is the function that I was actually looking for, just selecting the object and pressing this little, frame this thing up and put it into action. Don't know what happened with the Marvelous Designer camera there. But hey, so this is what it looks like now. And yeah, that's my pillow / balloon, whatever I want to call it. And with it, I can now do other exciting things. So what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to create a thin cylinder. You can attach the cylinder, or you can make the top of the cylinder into a rigid follow node, and then parent the balloon to that rigid follow node, and then you can simulate the string and make it go up. So we'll go through all that in a moment, and it'll look kind of funky, and it's really groovy to see what DAZ Studio's dForce engine can do when used in a way that it was probably not meant to be used for. So yeah, that's what I'm going to try and explain. that's my point here. Before we continue, let me just make one more round balloon here in Marvelous Designer before we can carry on. I'm just going to go and create a new scene so that we can start with a blank canvas. Has that actually, I see, I don't see my floor here. I really don't know where that is. Oh, right click. Okay. Oh, thank you, Christina. For front. There we go. That's cool. Custom view. No, not custom view. Something along those lines of just, reset. I can't see it. I'm going to do something else. I'm just going to go and close the app and to open it again. It's like the equivalent of rebooting your computer. Sometimes that's just easier to do. Marvelous Designer does take a little while to load. So hey, but that's cool. It gives me a time to catch up on the chat. Thank you, Earth's gravity 9.8 meters per square second. Really? What is a square second? How exciting! But that's what it says, right? Oh, good. Well, thank you so much. We see we've learned something new today. Thank you, Julia. Very cool. As I said, it takes some time to start here. Christina, what do you do with Marvelous Designer when you use it a couple of times a year? Is there a particular job you're using it for? Is there I'd love to see other people's workflow. So I'm always interested in that. I think we could all do with owning Marvelous Designer, but I totally agree with you. The price is just very expensive. I did see something in a demonstration once that somebody in Blender has stitched things together. So I don't know if that's the plugin you mean, or if it's something that's built into Blender. I don't know. I mean, there's so many amazing plugins for Blender. I haven't seen that functionality, but I'd love to find out more about it, because it is literally somebody had an avatar in the middle, and then they had patterns of clothing, and they just literally shrink wrap themselves around the figure, and that's something in Blender. One of those things. Zoom to all. Let's have a look at that. Thank you so much for the tip. Zoom extends all. Is that it? Okay, let's try that. Zoom extends all. No, that didn't work. Oh, I've screwed it up again, haven't I? That's terrible. No, okay, cool. We're still here. Was that it? Zoom to all? Yeah. Hopefully it's not going to happen again. Let's create another little circle here, just like with Photoshop pre-2019. We can hold the Shift key down, and then it'll constrain the proportion so that it'll be absolutely circular. And with this little icon here at the top with a transform pattern, I believe it's called, you can now go ahead and copy this, mirror paste that, and then just put that right next to it. Oh, there we go. Let's turn this around. I believe there was also another shortcut for that, but I don't remember them all, to be really honest with you. There we go. That's those two circles nicely in position. Let's go and sew them together. From here, I'm going to go clockwise first. Oops. And then we go from here now. We go anti-clockwise, otherwise the stitches are all going to be messed up, and we don't want that. Did I do it correctly? Yes, I did. Look at that. Fantastic. Looks a bit like a drum right now. Okay, so what we've just done in the previous thing, with the first type of pattern selected, under scene, with that pattern here, let's make sure we give it a bit of pressure here. And the second pattern also needs a bit of pressure. There we go. 5 is good. Whatever. That's layer, isn't it? I'm so sorry. That's not what I meant. Pressure. There we go. 5. And then the only other thing that we need to do is switch off the gravity. So simulation property somewhere here was gravity. There we go. Let's make that 0 as well. Okay. Oh, Rich Colburn's cloth modeling. I see. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for approving that link. Cloth weaver. Okay, I'll look into both these things. Thank you for the tip. That's really something that I knew was going to be possible to do that with Blender. So yeah, great new toy to play with instead of spending $200 on Marvelous Designer, or however much it costs for the proprietary license. I think I can get an upgrade for about $180. It's tempting, but I always like the program. You know, this is really fascinating. If you have the avatar and you can literally play with the clothing while it's on the avatar, it is marvelous, seriously marvelous. So good name for that as well. There, boom, switch on the simulation, and that creates that beautiful balloon type thing and all these wrinkles here. And you can make it as high res as you want. Yeah, now with the sculpting functionality, it's such a marvelous toy to play with, really. This is all we need from Marvelous Design. I'm going to go ahead and export that out as an OBJ again, and I'm going to call that a round balloon. There. Save that. And go over into DAZ Studio and see what how we can bring that in. This, I'm going to just go and move that over here just in case they load in the same region there. Import an existing file. The round balloon. I don't know why this resets to custom. It is the beta version. I'm using the 4.11 beta. I do like that denoiser. That's very exciting stuff. So I do like it. There we go. That's my round balloon. Oops, that's the square balloon. That's the round balloon. Excellent. So in order to give these things some nice looking materials, all I need to do, is, come on. There. All I need to do then is, what's going on here? Sometimes looks like my viewport shortcuts do not obey what I'm asking them to do. There we go. Maybe Marvelous Designer interferes somehow with DAZ Studio. Perhaps I'm just going to go and close it down. Don't know. Could be the streaming software. Usually, you know, a 3D application without us being able to move the viewport, it's not so good, is it? So, yeah, something is not as smooth as it's supposed to be. Let's put some materials on these and make them look handsome. with the square balloon first, I'm going to go and select the surface properties here. Under the editor, my square balloon has one surface, which is called fabric, and currently it looks like that's the 3D light properties here. Let's switch them over to Iray quickly. Under shaders, Iray, and that's the Iray Uber base. There we go. Double clicking that will just make sure that the surface properties here are changed into Iray, and now we can add a nice material to it. For example, like a metal thing, either brushed aluminium or maybe a aluminium polished. Let's do that. Let's have a look in the Iray preview. Oh, and also making sure that the grain completely disappears. I'm going to head over to the render settings and go into the filtering menu and switch on my wonderful denoiser here. Oops, post denoiser. I'm going to switch that on, enable it, and we can still see grain when this thing starts rendering. That's because it only kicks in after the 8th iteration by default. So I'll go ahead and set that to 0, because then every time I move the viewport, it goes and is grain free instantly. So that is very cool. I like that. Let's give my round balloon a bit of material, so you can see that it's reflecting in the other balloon as well. Very cool. Let me make that something maybe like a gold. Christina, it's on the DAZ website. If you search for DAZ Studio Beta just in the regular store, it's a product. It's a free product that you buy, or you just basically check out, and then it goes and puts that into your regular install manager. So it'll be a second version of DAZ Studio that you can install alongside the release version, and that lets you keep an eye on what they're currently planning. And right now there are different versions. So 4.10 is the release version, and 4.11 is the beta that they're currently working on. And it has a newer version of the dForce engine. It's got the latest Iray version as well. Rod, for example, can't use 4.10 with his 2080 Ti graphics card, because that Iray version doesn't support that yet. But 4.11 does, and I believe, Rod, you've got some good results there with 4.11. So it's worth having it, and it's nice for them to make it available side by side. So if it's not quite doing what you expect it to do, you can always go back to the regular version of DAZ Studio and have them side by side on the same system. Very cool. And I've mentioned the denoiser, was it, I believe, last week or the week before in my stream. There's a good video on there, and I'll explain more about how that works. It's very, very capable little thing there. Very exciting stuff. It's good to hear. Very good to hear, Rod. Let's go and put that Iray material on there as well. Let's see, we've still got the 3D light properties here, so let's go ahead and make that Iray 2, and then we'll go and maybe make this into a gold shader. So now we have one gold and one silver, so they look very, very exciting. That's balloons already. Very cool. There's also an article on my website. Actually, let me post a link to that compares the denoiser and also talks a little bit about more what that denoiser is. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, good, Rod. I'm looking forward to that. Exciting. Yes, it's an article called About That Denoiser in DAZ Studio 4.11. There we go. Let me paste that in right now. And that explains how the denoiser works, and it has some example renders that I've done with and without the denoiser, and how much time it saves. So that's I think we're going to be seeing a lot more use of that as soon as it becomes mainstream. So I'm going to go and switch this back to my regular smooth shaded viewport here, and I'm going to go and play a little bit with dForce now to make these balloons rise up to the ceiling, and then we can see how that works. It's slightly tricky, but I'm following RG Cincy's instructions here, where he's building a kite, and there's a link in the description to this video that says more about dForce, and that has a link to a forum thread, and that has all his written tutorials. It's on the DAZ website, in the DAZ forum. He spent spent a lot of time exploring the dForce engine, and he's built a kite from primitives. And I'm following his instructions now to create a strap on these balloons that will kind of make the balloons rise up, and you can give that strap to a character. So that'll come in handy. First of all, I'm going to create one cylinder, and then I'll duplicate that cylinder. The cylinder can be maybe 2 meters long, something along those lines. Create a new primitive. It's probably better if you build these things in Blender or another 3D application, but for the sake of staying in DAZ Studio, we can just do it here. So the length, I'm going to go and make it 2 meters. The diameter, it needs to be really small so that it's just a very thin strap. It could also be a flat cube, that's also possible. Give that a few segments so that there's enough geometry in there. Again, if you do this in a 3D application, you have more control over how the geometry looks there, and we don't really get that in DAZ Studio. I'm going to leave it 0.2 here. That's still fairly where are you? Oh, there you go. Perfect. That's still that's good. Thanks, GeForce Game Driver Ready installation. I'm going to make that thicker than it really needs to be. So this is probably a bit too thick for a strap, but for the sake of being able to see what I'm doing here on the small screen and with YouTube compression and all, I think I'll stick with that. So this thing, I'm going to envision it so that somebody's standing here and is holding this thing in their hand. So I don't want this part of the stick or of the strap to bend at all. So I've shown you this in my previous stream in which I've created what's it called, dForce weight map that allows us to paint certain parts of the object that will not be influenced. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to paint this in so that this part will not be affected and the rest of this thing will be affected. So let's start there. Let's do that first of all. And that works by selecting your, cylinder. We'll call it maybe strap, shall we? There we go. Call it strap. And with that selected, we can go over and first of all put the dForce surface properties on. We can either do that by heading over to Edit, Object, Geometry, add dForce dynamic surface. So that's one way of doing it, but that's kind of, how many levels down, so that's deep. There's another way of doing it, and that's on the simulation settings tab. If that's not open, you can bring that up under Window, Panes, Simulation Settings over here. Once that's open, mine is open here, you've got this little context menu right here. Can you see that? And that is, whoops, no, that's not it. That's it. This little context menu here. If you select that, then you get a similar window that opens, and one of which is called dForce, and in it you have the Add dForce Modifier Dynamic Surface. So when you do that, then you don't see anything in your Scene tab, but it adds the surface properties of anything dForce to your object. Under default, there it is, simulation. So you can set how your cloth or how your object should behave in the when you're simulating it. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to leave all these things on the default settings, and instead I'm going to go and have my object still selected and head over to Create dForce Modifier Weight Node. And that is something that lets us add this weight map. So as soon as I do that, it adds a node, as the name suggests. It's only a node, it's not the map yet. I'll see that in my Scene tab here. It's now got the weight node added on there. And to actually create the map, I need to head over to my tool settings, which is another tab here that I've opened up. And in my tool settings, I can now change whatever active tool I'm using. So right now I'm using the 3D manipulator, which is this guy here. I can change that from here under active tool. So if I go and pick something else, for example, the node weight map brush editor, I'll go and select that. And that comes up, that makes this window kind of context sensitive. It gives me different options. And here I'm now able to add one of many dForce maps to the object. So I'm glad I've inspired you, Rod. Very good to hear. So you can see many maps here. The first one that we need is the influence weights. So that's the default that's set. If you hit add map, that'll make our stick completely red. And it adds the influence weights map to it. So now we can start painting. It's kind of a cumbersome process, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It's all, it's all part of the plan. I can start painting. Everything is in red because the value that's now applied to the whole object is 1, and 1 means 100% active. 0 means not active at all. So with my paintbrush tool up here, I can now either paint. If I just left click and drag on it, I'm painting the values 1 into that. But because my map is already on 1, nothing appears to happen. So if I hold down Alt while I do that, then that value will gradually turn into blue, and blue will turn into gray. And that means I'm turning this gradually into value number 0. That's the idea behind that. So it looks like I've painted the back of it already. That's perfect. I'm just going to have a go and paint this also into gray. And so that now means this part of the object will not be simulated. Let's see if my theory is correct. It's all just theory at this point, isn't it? So if I go ahead and go and click simulate. Absolutely. Do you know, it's funny, I was while I was thinking about this, the lightsaber thing is actually, we can create that with a rigid follow node. It's very exciting. In the moment, we're going to do the rigid follow node at the other end. So we're going to come to that in a moment. And imagine the top of your stick is a rigid follow node, and that just emits light. And then the moment you move that around, that's how a rigid follow node works. A very good analogy there. Let's hit simulate and see what happens right now. I'm kind of expecting, that exactly. That's exactly what I'm expecting. We don't have a floor, so the thing just goes and does that. It just kind of fizzles out, and it just goes. We don't have a floor, so it goes right through there, and of course it falls to the ground because gravity is of course pulling the thing down, like we've just learned from Julia how big it is on Earth. So there we go. Very cool. It's so cool that they teach you something at school, and then years later you think, hey, hang on a minute, I do remember that. So let's go clear that again and mess with gravity a little bit. So gravity in dForce is under the environment settings. So under simulation settings, there's this tab environment here. Can you see that? There we go, environment. Is that right? Yes, environment, but I'm in the way again, aren't I? I need to really rejig those camera things there. So under environment, you've got this thing called, can I do it this way? Is that whoops, no, oh my goodness, that's terrible. Didn't want to do that. That was not the button. This is the button. There we go, that's the button I was looking for. Too many buttons on my keyboard. So under environment, you've got gravity, and DAZ Studio, or dForce more appropriately, thinks about gravity a little bit differently. So they don't give us the Earth value of gravity, they just give us 1. And 1 means, well, that's just like Earth. That makes it nice and easy. 0 would mean we'd have the same as what we did in Marvelous Designer a minute ago, that gravity would not influence my simulation. But in my case, I want my strap to literally rise up, don't I? So I'm going to set that to -1. And I'm sure that's not how it's designed to be used, but if I now go ahead and simulate my strap here, then I can see that it is in fact true. The strap rises up, and this is exactly what I want. So I want my balloon kind of to pull that thing up. That's the effect I'm going for, or the effect that RG Cincy was going for with his primitive kite that he's made there. So that's our strap rising up. That's cool. So I can either now go ahead and just take my balloon here and go to my 3D manipulator tool, take my balloon and kind of pop it on there and just put it into place. I can do that, but I can do something even cooler. I can do this. I can create a rigid follow node at the top of that strap. And rigid follow node is something that is attached to geometry. So I'll take my strap, I select some geometry, and that selected geometry can be turned into a node. And whatever I parent to that node will follow that geometry. So that's hence the lightsaber analogy there again. So if you had something that is just like this, that could be the stick here. This is like my pen type stick here. If I go and select that geometry at the top here, and then that flat piece of those polygons here, whichever way they face, that would mean my parented object would kind of face along with that. That's how a rigid follow node works, and I think that's very exciting. If we can use that for a lot of other things as well. So I've only just discovered this, and let me see if I can remember how it works, and I'll show you how that works. So with that strap selected, maybe I'll just go and clear that simulation again so that we can get to that top point here. I'm going to need another tool for that, one that we haven't really looked at much, and that is the geometry editor. So with my strap selected here, I'm going to go ahead over to the tool settings again, and the best way I find is to select it from here under active tool. So currently I'm using the universal manipulator, my trusty old friend, but I can also go and select the geometry editor from here. And when I do that, I get some kind of scary options here, but these are now geometry groups I can assign. So I'm not going to go into much detail here. I don't want to scare you off. It is only 10:40 in the morning, or 9:40 where Rod lives. So I don't want to scare you. But with these are your selection tools basically. This is a polygon selection. This is edge selection. This is vertex selection. And with the polygon selection active, I'm going to go and switch my viewport to wire shaded so I can see my polygons better here. And I go and zoom in here, and I'm going to select all these faces here, all these polygons, and I can just do that by left clicking and dragging over there. It's not that visible, but they are yellow, trust me. So they are now selected, so that's good. So I'm just going to go select all these vertices here, and with that selection active, I can now right click on this, and then a little menu comes up that says, oops. Sorry, one of my computers is just telling me his battery is running low. It's because whatever I've plugged in, that contact didn't quite charge him up. It's my old generation Surface Pro. Hang on a second. Charge, dude. There, power, excellent. Whew. Nice one. And I'm using this as my second kind of preview screen, and without him I'm kind of lost. I don't know what's going to here. So there we go. This little guy here, that now is, I seem to be in the way at all times. It's crazy, isn't it? There we go. This is the menu I'm talking about here. This is the menu I'm talking about. I can now go ahead and choose geometry assignment on here, and select, my goodness, where was it again? Create rigid follow node from selected. I'll see if I can make that a little bit more visible here. So no matter which one I select, it's just an awkward part of the screen here. So select the geometry. Select the geometry, right click the selected geometry, head over to geometry assignment, and then head over and say create rigid follow node from selected. And when you do that, you can give it a name, and then I'm going to call that maybe tip, strap tip, tip strap, strap tip, maybe strap tip. There we go, strap tip. And that creates this rigid follow node in our scene tab here. There, that thing. And that's literally just a node, so an empty placeholder. And as I said, wherever that part of the geometry is facing, that's where this node is facing. So the interesting thing, I'm going to go and change over to my 3D manipulator tool now. The interesting thing now is that I can grab one of my balloons and parent it to that strap. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to go and create, I'm going to select that golden balloon here and move it over. I'm kind of eyeballing this. Of course, you can go into more accurate viewports for that to place it properly. I'll go and rotate this by, I guess, 90 degrees. Let's have a look at the Y rotate. Oh, this is the X rotate actually. So let's make that minus 90, and then I can go and move that closer to the tip. Now, notice a few weeks ago when I did the stream about dForce, I believe it was the first dForce stream I did, we found that when we move this thing too close into the straps, if I do this, when the geometry intersects, then that will influence the simulation, and our balloon is probably not going to rise up off the ground. So I'm going to go and not do that. I'll show you both versions actually. I'll move it here so that there's a little bit of a gap that we can close off later. But just make sure the geometries do not intersect. I think that's the important part here. Perhaps move that over here, move that slightly further down. I guess, you know, if we looked from the left, or actually from the front, and we can see where we are in relation here. So it's kind of pretty much in the middle here. That's cool. There. So I'll leave that there for now. So that's the placement, that's the position, but it is not quite parented. So I've got my round balloon still, and it's on its own node. So if I go and left click and drag, and just drag that underneath the strap tip or onto the strap tip, then that gets parented. So the round balloon is now parented to the rigid follow node. And now, if my theory is correct, let's just see if that's correct. If I now go and simulate, the balloon should now not only follow the top geometry, it should also turn around properly. Let's see if it works. Getting there, getting there, getting there, elevating, lifting, off camera, there we go. That's the spirit. So it does actually follow with its origin point exactly where that tip of the strap is. We can probably simulate that a little bit longer so that it would go even further up with 60 frames perhaps. But you get the example. You get the gist of it. If I go ahead and let me just go and clear that out again and do what I said. If you move the balloon too close to the strap, like so, if it intersects with the strap, and if we now go ahead and try and simulate this, then you'll probably get an issue with, yeah, there we go, the strap not quite coming off the ground because it's now being held in position by two things. Remember, the balloon itself doesn't actually have any dForce properties applied. That we've all done that in Marvelous Design, and it's a static object as of now. So that is now holding the strap in place. So it kind of gives it that little kind of bow shape here. Also, another thing that we can use perhaps for scenes. So I'm going to go and move this out again so that they don't interfere with each other. Being parented to that rigid follow node is all we need really. And perhaps I'm going to go and see if I can make that open my timeline here, just out of curiosity really. If I turn that into my 60 frame timeline, and then I'll go under frames to simulate, I'm going to go and say animated using current timeline. So let's see what happens now with 60 frames. See if we can make the balloon go totally up. Because I think I've only tested this with 30 frames and no timeline, so it'd be good to see what dForce can do there for us. Yes, goes further up in the air. Look at that, very cool. Shame it's happening off screen, but you can never predict these things accurately. Let's have a look. There he is. So it's totally standing up straight now. And this is now probably too much. We don't really want to simulate that, but somewhere in the middle, that's where look at that, it spins around as well. That's a very cool simulation there, very exciting. There, woohoo! Can imagine all kinds of things you can do with that. So yes, a little bit of gravity fiddling, and then, you know, this is what happens. And that rigid follow node, so I thought that's that's a spam call. I'd rather not be ever called again. How's that? So one of those things. I get about 20 of those per day. My voicemail currently, very interesting. I think my voicemail has currently got, what was it again? 104. Look at that. This is exciting. This is 104 missed phone calls I have just with stuff. And so robot phone calls in the US, I understand, are a big issue right now. This is crazy stuff. Anyway, let's finish this off and do the same thing with the same strap with the other balloon, so that we have two balloons up in the air. And we can do that by literally copying the work that we've already done on that first strap and just multiply that on the second strap. Let's go ahead and do that. Close my timeline. Well, actually, no, don't close my timeline. Go to the first frame of the simulation. Clear the simulation as well. And go and duplicate our strap. So strap, edit, duplicate node hierarchies. So now we have strap 2. And of course, strap 2 now also has... Oh, they're terrible, aren't they? I'm thinking of getting this app. I forgot what it's called now, but there's an app that works. And I don't think it's that big an epidemic in Europe, actually, these robot calls. I think they have them, but I think it's not as bad as it's over here, where literally everyone's kind of... I saw this advert the other day that about 7,000 calls are being made every minute from the same number. This is just getting out of hand. Seriously, crazy stuff. So this is our strap 2 here. We have a balloon also copied. So let me remove that balloon and go and put the square balloon into position now. So we'll do the same thing as we did before. Just go and move that guy down. And turn him around by 90 degrees. Like so, minus 90 is probably easy if we just type that in. And then go and move him closer to that strap. Oh, there we go, we're totally off. There, and once again, make sure it's not quite intersecting with the geometry there. I think we're doing pretty good on the eyeball thing. Is that from the left? Oh, from the front. There we actually, look at that. We're pretty good. Pretty good. No adjustment necessary. I like it. So a little bit of a gap there between the geometry. Just make sure the square balloon gets parented to the strap tip, to the rigid follow node here. So we've got strap and we've got strap 2, and strap 2 should now also still have the map applied that we've just painted with this other thing. So let's see if we hit initialize. No more robo. Okay, yeah, excellent. I'll try that. Are you trying that, Rod? Is that something that you're using? No more robo. I like it. I think these people, they do charge per month, I believe, $1 or $2 a month, but I'm still thinking it's kind of worth it for me, really. Aha! There we go. Oh, what happened to my... Oh, look at that. He's too heavy. What's happened? My God, my poor big square balloon. The other one has been rising to the top, and this guy, oh my God, we've got a bit of geometry issue here. dForce is getting slow. This is never a good sign. I think we can probably safely say, let's go and cancel this and say, yes, dForce, you can probably stop rendering now. What happened there? Oh my goodness, my strap exploded. That's interesting, isn't it? But it only exploded on frame, don't know, somewhere here. Because up until here, everything was fine, and then it just goes. I wonder if that balloon was just too heavy or something. I don't know what happened there. So it's interesting to see also that whatever is parented to the rigid follow node is in fact influencing the simulation. Yeah, because I wonder what happens if we go and just make that balloon invisible and then simulate it again. I'm expecting then perhaps that not to happen. Let's try. It's interesting to make experiments like that. I think this is the only way to really find out how these things work. Because I'm expecting that without the balloon, why would it fall in on itself? How interesting. So now it simulates no problem. But with the balloon attached, it's a heavy balloon. What was it filled with? Lead? Liquid lead? Don't know. I guess, yes, liquid hydrogen. The hydrogen balloon. Hey, that would be something for the girls from TNA. Maybe they can chase after that. What happens if I make the balloon appear again? Oh, great. So without the balloon simulated, it's totally fine. That's just weird, isn't it? That is just bizarre. And once the simulation is done, of course, you can now go ahead and fiddle with the whole strap, and you can now twist and turn that. You can also set the position, so you can, I suppose this is still in its position there. So yeah, one of those things. Tell you what I'll do, while I still have Marvelous Designer, I'm going to make these balloons. I've tried to make number shapes as well with these balloons, but they kind of just collapsed in on themselves. So the photo I've shown you with the big 5 and the 0 that I've given Julia for her birthday, I try to make balloons like that in a proper series, like 0 to 9 and maybe some letters, but I wasn't that successful with it. Maybe I just haven't traced the right patterns there. But yeah, that was my plan. Since I wasn't quite successful with that, I'm gonna go and export these balloons here, the whole scene in fact, and make that available as a freebie on Renderosity. How's that? So just make these 2 shapes, maybe with a few shaders. They're just stock shaders from the Iray library, and then you can use them in your own scenes because they're really simple to make and they're just, you know, nice looking OBJs. And maybe one day, if I figure out how this works in Blender, I'm gonna try and make another video on that. So I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry about the Marvelous Designer hiccups there in the beginning, but you know, it's one of those things. I guess that's part of a live program there. A little bit of news I can think of. After 15 years of exciting service on Mars, the little Opportunity rover has given out and he's no longer doing its thing up there. NASA tried to contact him after a few months of he being, I don't know, asleep or something, and he didn't respond. So that's a bit of a shame. Yeah, that's so Opportunity, Spirit and Opportunity are both dead. And it's not bad though, because they were, I guess, designed for a 90-day mission on Mars, and they lasted 15 years. Well, Opportunity did last 15 years. And I don't think it's actually broken. I think it's just that there's so much dust on the solar panels that he just doesn't have any power anymore. So I guess that's what it is. Shout out to my colleague Chad, who is celebrating his 34th birthday today. So we're having a lot of birthdays here. Chad is 34 today. I hope you're having a great day. I've given him a card. It says, not everything ages... not everything gets better with age, like tattoos, for example. And then on the inside it says, hey, but you, no problem at all. So he's getting worried that he's getting gray hairs now. I smiled and said, hey, you'll get over it. That is it. I hope you found this helpful and entertaining. Yes, Christina, I need to learn more about that dForce stuff as well, because it is literally, I think it's just the beginning of what they're doing as well in DAZ Studio. They want to extend dForce into other things, and I'm very much looking forward to what's 15 years. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to what's happening in the future. So yeah, definitely good to get in there. I've got a link in the description of this video that says more about dForce, and one of them is the link to RG Cincy's tutorials on the DAZ forum. So very exciting. I have some great music for you today. I've played one in the holding loop. That was Nick Gibbs. He's an Australian musician. He lives in Germany, and he's released a debut album about a couple of years ago. It's called My Mind It Runs Away, and he's a wonderful, wonderful musician. He's written all the songs for his second album. He's just looking for funding to produce it now, so I wish him all the best. He's fantastic. He's greatly inspired me through my cancer journey, and that was the title track of his album, In the Holding Loop. Yeah, there's a link to his there we go, exactly, Wandering Lately and Comfortable Being. That's right. Thank you, Julia, for posting that. nickgibbsmusic.com. I'm going to play another song from you now, from his album now. I hope you're going to enjoy that. Have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to join me for a bit of hang time, or as the South Africans say, a bit of kakprot, I guess. That is when I'm playing Subnautica tomorrow at 4 p.m. on a Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. for you, Rod. If you are free, please join me. That will be 10 p.m. in the evening for you, Christina. Christina's just gone home. Oh, Rod, thank you so much. This is exciting. Rod's worked out how to do super chat. This is exciting. Thank you so much, Rod. Awesome. That is very cool. Join me again Saturday afternoon, evening for a bit of Subnautica. Let's see if we can find more goodies there. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Rod, for your donation. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm one of the supremely comfortable things in the world. He's one of the supremely. He's one of the supremely. I'm one of the supremely comfortable. Oh yeah. I'm one of the supremely comfortable things in the world. He's one of the supremely. I woke up late last night, not a drop of sweat was on my body. I recognize the lights, the music that was flowing all around me. This hyperbole really isn't just exaggeration. For myself immersed in ultraviolet illumination. Oh, I'm one of the supremely comfortable things in the world. I'm one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. I'm one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. He's one of the supremely. He's one of the supremely. I'm one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. She's a powder puff, looking out for dope and for her baby. She's not learning much except for how to draw a poison daisy. I'm one of the supreme. I'm one of the supreme. She can't get enough, giving blood and milk and all her money. Now the child is sick, will it be medicine or comfort, lady? Yeah, I'm one of the supreme. She's one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. She's one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. She's one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. He's one of the supremely. He's one of the supremely. She's one of the supremely comfortable beings in the world. I'm one of the supreme. I'm one of the supreme.